I had a really old laptop that was starting to decrease in productivity. Like, for example, it would only hold charge for about 15 minutes if it wasn't plugged in. I'd had it for about 8 years, and it did well for me in that time, but it was time for an upgrade. Fortunately, I was looking to get a new one right around Black Friday. I knew there would be some deals on a solid laptop. I didn't need anything super expensive anyways, but I, like everyone else, like to save money whenever I can. I was planning on going to Best Buy super early in the morning, and hoping I'd be able to get there in time. I showed up, and it was of course packed. I knew the chances of actually finding something were slim, but I figured I'd ask anyways. As I expected, all the laptops were gone. I figured I'd give Target a try next. I drove down the road to Target, and it was of course crowded as well. I went back to the electronics where the laptops were, and actually found one that was still available. It was a decent price, and was plenty nice enough for what I needed. I almost couldn't believe my luck. I tracked down an employee quickly to secure it before anyone else could. I went to the desk in the back by the electronics to pay for it there, and it all went well. The worker even told me that I had gotten the very last one they had available. I was making my way out, but before I even made it out of the electronics section, some man stopped me and asked if I had gotten the last laptop. I said, "Yeah man, sorry." He looked disappointed. He said that he really needed that laptop, and asked if I could give it to him. I said no, and again told him I was sorry. He kept asking though. Every time I tried to walk past him, he would step in front of me and keep asking me, basically begging at this point. It was even starting to cause a bit of a scene. His tone seemed to get increasingly more aggressive too. At the end of the day, it's just a laptop, but I already paid for it. I don't know why he was trying this hard to get it from me. I didn't have time for this, and eventually, I walked swiftly past him and outside the store into the parking lot. At the time, I just saw it as an inconvenience, and just something you have to deal with from time to time since it was Black Friday after all. I drove home and had some stuff to get done. About 20 minutes after I got home, there was a knock on the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I went over to the door and opened it. It was the guy from Target who wanted my laptop. He had followed me home after I had left the store. He once again asked me if he could have the laptop. I was pissed that he had even followed me to my house, and told him to leave or I'd be calling the police. He didn't move. He just asked again. I walked back inside my house for just a second to grab my phone, and he was gone. He wasn't at my door anymore. I walked further out and looked into my yard, but I couldn't see him. I called the police and told them what was going on. Someone would be out in a few minutes. I just shut the door, locked it, and waited. I did not want to go out in the yard playing hide and seek with this guy. I was just hoping that he would get back in his car and leave. I heard a knock on my back door now. It was him. He was actually trying to open my back door. Fortunately, I had just locked it. The cops ended up showing up right around that time and detained the man in my backyard. They asked me some more questions and ended up taking him away. I think that guy had some sort of mental issues or something. I know it's Black Friday and prices are low, but I've never dealt with someone who has followed me home and even tried to enter my house over a laptop. I'm a college student, and I also have a part-time job working at a store that's in my local mall. The job itself isn't too bad, and I only work part-time. Usually I work from like 4 p.m. to close when I have school. Black Friday was coming up, so the store wanted me to work a little extra to handle the demand. I was off school for the week, so it wasn't a problem. The only thing was, working on Black Friday always sucked. The mall is always ridiculously crowded, and people just seem to be more rude on Black Friday for some reason. I wasn't looking forward to it in the first place, but I just needed to get through it. The first couple hours actually went about as well as they could have. It was crowded, of course, but nothing unmanageable. I was up at the cash register, and a guy walked up to talk with me. He was a younger guy, maybe around my age or slightly older. I asked him if I could help him with something. He said that he wasn't buying anything, but that he wanted to know if he could have my number. I should mention I'm a female, and this has happened before. It's not completely uncommon. I tried to be as nice as possible in telling him no. He tried to convince me more to give it to him, but eventually, I think he took the hint and left. This guy was a little more pushy than most guys are when they approach me at work. I was glad he was gone. Over the course of the day, though, I saw him walking out in the main area of the mall multiple times. Every time, it looked like he was looking in my direction. It was kinda weird. I saw him walk back and forth at least 8 times. I told one of my coworkers about it, and he just kinda laughed, and said something about that guy probably being super desperate. I managed to get through Black Friday, and I was absolutely exhausted. It was pretty late as well, definitely past dark. I usually always have a coworker walk with me outside to my car. Maybe I'm paranoid in general, but I just feel much safer that way. We left the mall and made our way toward the parking lot. There was a car parked right next to me. While I was getting into my car, I noticed there were people sitting inside the one right next to me. There was at least 2 people in there, one in the driver and one in the passenger seat. I sat in my car for a second and took a glance over to the left. The guy in the passenger seat was the guy from earlier. I was a little worried, but tried to rationalize it as just a coincidence. I started my car up and started pulling out of the parking lot. The car next to me did the same and trailed behind me. I was concerned now. I pulled onto the main road and they followed. I decided I'd take a couple random turns just to verify if they were following or not, and just as I figured, I was right. They were definitely following me. I knew of a police station close to my house, so I made my way over there. I thought if I drove to the police station, they would just leave me alone, and it worked. Once they realized where I was going, they passed me and continued down the road. I waited a little bit and then finally went back home. I still work at the store in the mall, and to my knowledge, haven't seen that particular guy since. If you're ever followed, my advice is to find a police station and go there. Chances are, that will be enough to scare anyone off. I went Black Friday shopping at Walmart to try and get some things for Christmas that was coming up. Usually Walmart starts their Black Friday deals at 6 p.m. on Thanksgiving. At least the Walmart near me does that. It was packed as usual. I went Black Friday shopping just about every year. To me, it's worth it to get great deals, especially on things that are normally super expensive. I had to park in the very back of the parking lot because the rest was all filled up. I had a few things on my list I was looking for, but wasn't expecting to come out with everything. If I could cross a few things off the list, then it would end up being worth it to me. I actually ended up getting a few things before it was all gone. I considered myself pretty lucky. I was in line at the checkout for about 45 minutes though. Finally, I got out of there and walked back to my car. I was putting stuff in the car and I went to feel my pocket to grab my phone. My stomach dropped. It wasn't there. I had to have lost it somewhere in Walmart. I knew the chances were super low of actually finding it, but I walked back into the Walmart with my head down, praying I would find it somewhere, but it was gone. Someone had to have picked it up. I left, now dejected that I had somehow lost my phone. It did concern me a little bit that someone probably had my phone, but I did have a password on it. I was more disappointed in the fact that I was going to have to buy a new one. I just went home and told my wife what happened when I got back. There wasn't much I could do about it. I was watching TV in the living room later in the night. The motion sense light on the side of my house had come on. I could see it coming through the window. I didn't do anything immediately, but it was unusual. I waited a few minutes and walked over to the front window just to take a look outside. The side door to the detached garage was open and the light was on inside. Someone had to have been in there. I figured I needed to go check it out. I grabbed a baseball bat from the closet and walked outside. The padlock on the door had been snapped, probably by some sort of pliers. I didn't see anyone when I walked in. I wasn't satisfied though. There was a million places someone could hide in there. I walked around and over to one of the workbenches. Sitting on it was my phone. The same phone I had lost at Walmart earlier that night. I was too freaked out now. I grabbed the phone off the desk and just walked out of the garage. Even though I was somewhat armed, I didn't feel comfortable in that situation. I made sure I locked all the doors and windows and went to sleep. The next morning, the door was still shut. I asked my neighbor Tom to come look inside the garage one more time with me. I filled him in on what was going on, and he agreed. We looked all over, every single possible space that someone could have hid, and it was clear. They probably left before I had entered last night. My phone was unusable. Whoever had it somehow disabled it. Whoever picked up my phone in Walmart must have bypassed the password somehow and gotten into it where my address was on my phone, as well as other personal information. I know there's ways to jailbreak phones and things like that, but I don't know too much about it. Some tools from the garage were stolen, and some of those had some decently high value. Lesson learned: be extra careful with your things when you're around large amounts of people, especially during things like Black Friday sales.